what got you first interested in Egypt, Victoria?
I was probably about 4 years old, maybe even younger, and my dad put a documentary on TV about Egypt, and I just like sat there and watched it, and I've loved Egypt since the age of like 4, I'd say. So I've been obsessed with Egypt for a very, very, very long time. I've got loads of books on Egypt in my storage unit. Like it's so.
I know it's unrelated to ancient Egypt, but what would you describe as your favourite Egyptian food?
My favourite Egyptian food. Oh, that's a hard one. Because Egyptians mostly eat like dairy stuff and fish and everything. So I'd probably stick to the dairy stuff, like the bread and veg. Probably. I'd probably have like a cucumber sandwich in Egyptian time.
Okay.
So you've been to Egypt, haven't you?
I've been to Egypt myself.
Yeah.
I've seen the pyramids in real life. And it is literally the most amazing thing ever. Seeing the pyramids, like it's just they're huge. It's really, but it is actually really, really hot out there.
Yeah.
Because I went when it was the coolest time, and it was like literally so hot.
Can you climb the pyramids, or is it just there to look at?
They're there to look at, but you can go inside them if you want to.
Oh, that's cool.
Because like the pyramids, they were found. I can't remember what year they were found, but Pharaoh. They built the pyramids, then they would put the Pharaoh in there. So, and they're very confusing names. the three pyramids.
Yeah.
Really announce it. But they basically found the pharaohs in the pyramids, and they think there's more chambers and stuff inside the pyramids. So so they have taken away like mostly everything that was in the pyramid, and it's in their museum, Cairo Museum, not the British Museum.
Nice.
I'm excited about the British Museum. Trust me. Don't get me started about that one. And but you can go in there, and I think there's hieroglyphics in there and stuff. But I never went in the pyramids because Sonny turned around to me and said, "There's no point paying going to pyramids because there's nothing in there."
How do you know there's nothing in there though? You don't know until you find out.
That's an Australian speaking.
That's a good idea.
If I ever go back to, I would probably go back into the pyramids.
Yeah.
Because I was with my mum, and my mum around that time needed a hip replacement. So she couldn't walk like that much around and stuff. She'd be in a lot of pain.
Okay.
But she's had a hip replacement now and stuff. Because I was about 15 or 16 years old when I went to Egypt. And I'm 26 now, so it's been a very, very long time.
Yeah.
Do you have a particular favourite Egyptian god?
I would say Horus.
Yeah. Can you tell us a bit about him or her and why you like them?
I think I like Horus because I have actually, my books are actually over there, They're like that big, but they're all books. And one is actually about all the gods and stuff. I've been reading. At the moment, I've been reading about the royal family. Harry and Meghan's finding freedom.
So,
But talking about the gods, I think Horus, because you have Horus the bird, then you have Horus's eye, and I quite like both of them. But I would say I do love watching The Mummy Returns, The Scorpion King, and the new Mummy with Tom Cruise in it. I like what I can watch that. I probably watched their movies probably 100 times, and I still watch it to this day. And I've watched the Mummy of the Emperor's Tomb or something it's called, but that one's about China. Because they say Egypt's apparently kind of linked with China through mummification and stuff.
So what's Horus the god of? Like what's his or their bag? Like what do they oversee?
I haven't read into that part yet about Horus, but I think Horus protects, I think. I would have to look into my books about Horus. But I know, like, Osis or something, I think it's Osis is his name. He's, like, kind of the god of underworld.
Yeah, right.
And, like, because, like, with this book I'm reading, it's, like, kind of, like, just like the Bible, but the Egyptian way of how life started, which is actually really, I find it really interesting, but it's just, I haven't read that book in ages. I mostly read about Tutankhamun.
why do you like him? What is it about Tutankhamun that really interests you?
Fascinates me, because like they knew Tutankhamun existed, but they never found his tomb. Then Howard Carter did. Then weird stuff to happen. Once they opened the tomb and everything, something weird happened. Like they died in weird ways and weird stuff happened. They think that's the curse of Tutankhamun's tomb.
Yeah.
And it just fascinates me because, like, to do with all the X-rays and stuff they've done on Tutankhamun, like when they first said, they thought he was murdered because like he had like fractures and stuff, and then they believe he died from an illness and stuff. So it is very, very interesting because like they've changed it a few times, but now they believe he died from an illness and a childhood accident. But at first they thought he was murdered because there was a fracture on his skull, I think, and on his leg, I think, and ribs as well, I think it was. So like, and the one thing that I really love about Tutankhamun is his tomb was never untouched. So like he was hidden for thousands and thousands of years, and like when they opened up like the tomb, like all the treasure was still there and everything. So like there hasn't been any like robbers, because you have quite a lot of tomb robbers in Egypt back then. That was
You do.
still stuff from the tomb. So it's very fascinating to find that, and I like what I'm trying to get is like kind of a book based on Howard Carter's like diary, of the actually extradition of Tutankhamun and finding Tutankhamun, and in his words, like open up his tomb and everything like that, because I'd find that really interesting. Like his actual thoughts about opening up the tomb. So, like, if I go back to Egypt, I definitely want to go back to because I only went to Cairo because I stayed in Sharm el Sheikh, which was like basically on the Red Sea. So we had to get on a coach to Cairo, and Cairo is the capital city of Egypt. I went into the museum in Cairo. I loved it in there. You saw real mummies and everything.
That's awesome.
And that stuff is real, mate.
Yeah.
You're like, the British Museum, and it's fake. That is fake.
That's it.
Yeah. British Museum is fake.
It is.
I nearly got kicked out of the British Museum, telling the public that all the Egyptian stuff is fake in it.
So because you said your honest opinion, they kicked you out of the British Museum.
Almost.
Yeah, I almost nearly got thrown out of the British Museum. I don't think I'm allowed back in there. Wow.
What did you do?
I was telling the public that the artifacts are fake.
That's okay to do that. I think it's probably
It's
great
true.
you're doing that, because why would they pay money to see things that
Yeah.
aren't real?
Well, like, the thing is, like, there's a coffin. The Egyptian coffin, right? There's no bloody mummy.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
like, if you go to Egypt and you look at their coffins, their mummies are, like, on show and stuff. And, like, and it just looked like, I don't know, I just looked at it. I think it's because I've been to Cairo Museum, so I can tell, like, what's probably real and what is fake. Because I could tell, like, they probably overpainted that, or, like, they probably polished it off or something, because it looks like, it didn't look like it came out of, like, a pyramid or a tomb. And then when I was at the gift shop at the British Museum, the person did ask me, do I work for the British Museum?
What, asked if you'd work there?
Yeah, they asked me, do I work at the British Museum? And I was like, yeah, I wish.
What is your favorite part of ancient Egypt? Like,
my questions weren't answered. Thank you.
What's my favourite part of Egypt? I would say Valley of the Kings, because there's a lot of pharaohs and I think there's more to things in Valley of the Kings. My second one would be Cairo, because that's the capital of Egypt. But I would love to go back to Cairo. I want to go back to Cairo and actually be like Indiana Jones, like go through like their market, like try and like live the life they live, like kind of like see like the stuff like us, like where we sell the fruit and stuff, like kind of see that kind of experience as living in Egypt. Because I always said I'd love to like live in Egypt for like a month probably, just to see what life is like over there. I'll probably come back really brown. Like the weather's really, really hot. And I probably wouldn't be able to deal with like their spiders and snakes. Because they have big spiders. But like when I was in Egypt, I never saw a snake at all.
Are snakes sort of considered holy in Egypt, or are they
They're
and some.
actually snakes. They think were because actually they had snakes on their crown, so the
Yeah.
crown was like that, and there was two snakes like here, and it represented, I think, protection.
I didn't know that. That's mad.
Even
Yeah.
Cleopatra died
Yeah.
from because she killed herself by being
Right.
bitten by a snake. I know, like, they've never been able to find her tomb, but recently studies think they found it. Probably.
Okay, cool. What's the most
Yeah.
interesting fact about Cleopatra? I don't know anything about her. Did she used to take baths in milk or something? So,
Basically, her brother was on the throne, and he was doing a very bad job at it.
Yeah.
Like, he was trying to find his sister and I think assassinate her or something like that. So she was in hiding. And what happened, I think it was Caesar, he went to Egypt because there was a connection with the Greeks and Romans, the Egyptians, with trade and everything. And Caesar was in the palace because like they try and make the peace, or they do trade, or they just talk. And Cleopatra wrapped herself in the carpet and told him to give him to Caesar, and then
Yeah.
Caesar like basically gets rid of her brother, and she becomes pharaoh, and I think she marries Caesar, and then Caesar ends up being assassinated. And then she ends up with Mark Antony, I think, as well.
That's right.
Dangerous.
But it is very interesting. Like I find mummification is quite interesting as well in some way. It is a very gory mummification when it comes to what they do.
Am I right in thinking that they used to hook out the brains from the nose?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You did.
They
That's the one thing. The one takeaway from history was they used to hook
Yeah.
Wow. I know, and they moved all your organs and put them in jars. Lovely. So, like, when they have an X-ray, like, you won't see the lungs or anything because they've removed it and put it into jars. And if you search Egyptian jars properly, it'll come up with the actual jars they put their organs in.
Yeah.
Because like each pharaoh had that, and what I loved was I love slaying people like this. Like you've all probably seen the Mummy. Who has seen the Mummy? Put your hands up if you've seen the Mummy.
Long time
What's
ago.
the Mummy?
Yeah.
Is it a movie?
I've never seen it.
No, I haven't seen it either.
There's a guy called Himotep, and actually, he's actually real, but it's totally different to the movie. So Himotep was actually a real person in ancient Egypt. He was actually a priest, and he was actually the first person to build the first step pyramid. But he was not evil, like in the movie or anything. And you can type in step pyramids, I think, and it will come up with Himotep made it, and he was a priest. And there is a real thing called Book of the Dead, but it doesn't actually look like that in the movie. It does look not like that in real life. There's like a huge, basically, the Book of the Dead they believed in the afterlife
Mm.
when you died in Egyptian time. Like, there was a journey you had to go through, and you needed spells and protection and stuff to get through to the end of the afterlife, where your heart will be weighed at the end. So to get all through that, you would need the Book of the Dead, and the Book of the Dead is basically spells to get through the afterlife safe. But like, to have the Book of the Dead, it would cost a lot of money in Egyptian times to have that made for them. So only the rich people could afford the Book of the Dead. And then they would travel through all these like levels, and they would have like the scroll on them in the afterlife. And once they reached the end, they had to weigh their heart to see if they deserved the afterlife. So basically, you know, like we have like heaven or hell.
Yeah.
It's the same with the Egyptians. They have afterlife, or you're fed to the crocodile god, and they feared the crocodile god. So like, they had these scales, and I think it was your heart was weighed with a feather. I think it was, and if it stayed the same, you would go to the afterlife. If it weighed heavy, you would be fed to the crocodile god. So like, that's what they believed in the afterlife in Egyptian time. And when I was in Egypt as well, I went to a place where they actually made papyrus.
Mm.
And they make it from bamboo. Like it's really hard to explain. But if you ever buy papyrus, like if you go like that, you could probably feel or like kind of recognize it's from bamboo. And they like smash it, and then they make it, and then they did like painting and stuff. But my dream is to go to Egypt as well, and basically go down the Nile and stop at every stop in Egypt and see everything. Like, but like, they really feared hippopotamus and crocodiles. That was like the most accidents, and most people know about Egypt because it's in the Bible with Moses, and that is a true story. Recently studied, they have found out the plague actually did happen in Egypt.
Yeah.
So
really, that's awesome. That's not awesome, but interesting.
They know it actually happened, and I was just like, that is really weird. But like, I have watched like loads of Egypt movies. Like, I've watched, I think it's called Gods and Kings. It's about the story about Moses, but it's more depth. I've watched Treasures of Tutankhamun. I watched Joseph and the Magical Dreamcoat.
Yeah.
Because that's connected to Egypt. And when I was at school, we actually did a play of Joseph and the Technical Dreamcoat, and I was the narrator. And like, I had to dress up as an Egyptian.
Amazing.
And I loved it. And I've made like Egypt stuff before, so I've made their like mask and everything. And I've literally have got probably over 10 Egypt books. Like, I'll show you my collection. Like, right here. So this is my storage cupboard. So all them books you see right there, they're all my Egypt books. Like them are all Egypt. Right there. That is like literally all Egypt.
I think I've got that book too.
I do too.
I've got that Exploring Ancient Egypt book at my house as well.
Yeah, so I've got lots, but that one is a very important one to me because my dad.
What is it about Egypt? Like, when you think, like, what is it about Egypt that makes you passionate about it? Like, just that
You know
gets you
what?
excited.
I have no idea. But we were talking about gods.
Mm.
I actually have a book called The Egyptian Myths: A Guide to the Ancient Gods and Legends.
Okay, there you go.
Mm.
Interesting.
Then I watched this actually on National Geography ages ago, and I thought this guy was like fit as hell. So I ended up getting it.
I know it's like unreal.
So because I've got Disney Plus, they actually got a documentary on that at the moment called The Treasures of Tutankhamun.
Okay, there you go.
And it's really, really interesting. Like I can sit there for hours watching documentaries of Egypt.
Wow.
Like what I do is I create books of my own, and I put my own information into the book of my findings of it.
Oh, so like you create your own book from the information you see on the show.
So it's kind of like, let me get one book out. I'll get my special one out.
Just so you know, Fraser, too, Sky is the same as Foxtel.
Right.
Okay.
It is a very, very special book. And
I didn't know what Sky was.
it's very old because I've had this book since 2004.
Wow.
Very long time.
And
16 years old.
I even had the handwriter right there where it says March 14th, 2004.
Got the date on there too.
Yeah, I got the date on there. And what I love about this book is a very, very heavy book. This one does a really special one because I love the pictures in this book. Because but this book is actually really, really special to me. So let me get to Tutankhamun. If I can find it. I always like going to the Tutankhamun page. That's Nefertiti, Valley of the Queens. So this is actually Tutankhamun's tomb at Valley of the Kings.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Wow.
That's awesome.
And what I love is like they painted that like thousands of years, and it's still kind of there.
Yeah, it's amazing what sticks.
It is.
So I have a here.
Oh, wow.
Very good.
Awesome.
That is actually my name in hieroglyphics.
That's cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's great.
I
So
wrote
cool.
my name in hieroglyphics, so that's
That's amazing.
ICTOR, and that's
really cool.
IA.
It is.
And so in my book, you won't believe this, but
Oh, you got ideas on there. I love the ideas.
Yeah.
That's so
wrote,
cool.
literally all this information.
Your writing's so neat, Victoria.
I did GSC history, so my handwriting
Yeah.
has to be neat.
Yeah.
So like, I wrote about the beginning of Egypt. Then I got to the first dynasty, because in ancient Egyptians, like, to explain it, there's dynasties. So like, give the first one, second one, that lot. So that's how you show like how you're like. So like, if you were talking about Tutankhamun, you could all just like say the fifth dynasty, and now know like that was Tutankhamun's time. So that's what dynasty means to Egypt and to that lot. Then I put the Old Kingdom, because like there's the Old Kingdom, New Kingdom, and stuff. So and like what I love is like, because I know so much Egypt, like I actually learn everything new every single day. Because like I know all about the pharaohs and everything, but I seriously didn't know how this all started. How did we know about the Egyptians? How did we know it existed? And how did we know this all happened?
Okay.
So I actually went into more research of like how Egypt actually all begun, and that how it all started off as is we found pottery on the River Nile, that we know little villages existed, because we found like artifacts and stuff. Because when I was at college, I was on a university course to become a Egyptologist, but because of my learning difficulties and stuff, like when you have to do assignments, you have to have like so many words, so much information, like on that, and it was all online. So, and I went into it like halfway through nearly, so it was really, really hard to do that, all the assignments and stuff. I think if I had more support from college or from a university, I would love to go back and give it another shot, because my dream when I was little was to become like history Egyptologist and a treasure finder, but like Egyptian one, where like I'm searching through the sand with my tools for Egyptian artifacts.
Yeah.
But most of Egyptian artifacts are even. So if you ever go in a museum and there's Egyptian stuff, just remember this: it's either stolen, or it's fake, or it's a copy. Yeah. Like me and Carol, we're always bantering about the British Museum, aren't we, Carol? It's fake. Here we go. It's fake.
Yeah. I mean, they had. It's like, you know, now in Australia, a lot of Australian Aboriginal tribes are getting stuff back from the British Museum, because they just took stuff without asking or getting, and it's very distressing when you take bodies and put them in the museum and you haven't asked, you never got permission. So they've now been campaigning, haven't they, to get stuff back?
Yeah.
Because I think about it like this, like this is how I think about it. Like, no, England's got like the Mary Roads and stuff.
Yeah.
Who do you see the Egyptians taking that away from the English people?
Yeah.
Like that answer? Like, you wouldn't take away
Rude though.
from their country. So that's what I think about. Like, if it was me, if they stole something British, we deserve to have that back, because that is actually British. So, like, if you think about it from an Egyptian point of view, they mostly go have the real stuff because they have every right over it. And I don't know why. It's just because I've been in the Cairo Museum, I've seen Tutankhamun's treasure and everything, and I can tell you that it's real. You can tell, like,
Yeah.
he sat in it. You can tell that's his coffin. You can tell that's a mummy. But apparently, mummies were removed at the British Museum because it made people cringe and pass out.
It.
But me, I have seen mummies for real and on documentaries, and they don't gross me out. But the interesting thing about Tutankhamun, his mummification was actually rushed, and his burial was rushed. That's why when they found Tutankhamun, they were really shocked about how because there is actually a certain stage of mummification, and they rushed and sometimes I love mummification, like the process of it. It is a very ugly thing, but they think we've actually learned about medicine from the Egyptians because we were actually using some method from what the Egyptians used to do. Because Annie told me they went, did you know, like some of the stuff the Egyptians actually do that we did? Because like I have been reading up like about, because I actually want to know like how did they live in their daily lives like we do. Like I really want to know like what did they do for a living, like if they were a widow, would they be allowed to marry again? Like kind of like that's always burning in my head. So and I found out like they made bread, they farmed, they fished,
They did.
they had the Nile, and I think it was a few months ago, I actually did a pub quiz on my team about Egypt, and I was very, very disappointed in them. I was so disappointed because I would go, where are the 3 pyramids? And it took them over 5 or 10 minutes to come up with the answer. Because like with me, saying where's the 3 pyramids? I went Giza in Cairo.
Yeah.
Easy. And apparently there's a McDonald's outside there now.
What?
And I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to lie though. I did have a McDonald's when I was in Egypt. But you have
Wasn't
to
a good McDonald's?
In Egypt. They have McDonald's in Egypt.
Is it good?
The burger's been really big. But you have to be really, really careful because you're not allowed to drink their water or eat their salad or ice cream. I think you can have it in the hotel, but when you go outside, because you can get really ill. So before I went to Egypt, I had to have 4 jabs because there's a lot of diseases and stuff out there. You have to protect yourself. Right. So I had to have 4 jabs to protect myself. But I just tell you, it was hot out there. Like, it was so bad, my nose was bleeding every single day from the heat. It was like, I think it's October's the coolest and stuff, but Egypt never rains really. Yeah. But like, my other second favourite history is Greek mythologist.
We could do Victoria. We could do another talk on Greek mythology.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed my company. Oh well, see you later, guys.
Thank
Bye.
you so
See you,
much,
Victoria. See you, everyone.
It's awesome.
Bye. Okay.
Oh,